Hi everyone, welcome to Raw Inspired Living. My name is Kelly and I'm so grateful to have you all here. Today we're going to jump into video 3 in the series on protein and muscle, and I want to be honest with you about something. For a long time during perimenopause and moving into menopause, I honestly thought that strength training wasn't really for me. You know, I was the mum of a young toddler and I thought strength training was for a certain other kind of woman, one who wanted to look a certain way or wanted to spend hours in a gym chasing a certain aesthetic, and that felt pretty far from what I was actually interested in at the time. And I think a lot of women in midlife carry a similar story, that strength training is for younger women. You know, it's something I did when I was younger. You know, it's for people who want to get bulky. Strength training is not really relevant to what I'm trying to do for my health now. And honestly, I do understand that story because that was me. That was what I was living. But I want to tell you today why that story is one of the most costly ones a midlife woman can hold on to. Because the research, you know, it's very clear. Resistance training is one of the most powerful interventions available to women over 45 for metabolic health, hormonal balance, bone density, blood sugar regulation, and long-term overall vitality. And if you are not doing it, or not doing it in a way that's appropriate for where your body is right now, you are leaving your most powerful tool on the table. So let me take you back to what we covered in the last 2 videos because it all connects. We talked about the fact that muscle is metabolically active tissue, that it is one of the primary sites for glucose uptake in the body, that it drives insulin sensitivity, and that as estrogen declines through perimenopause and beyond, the body becomes less efficient at building and maintaining muscle. And that this loss of muscle mass has downstream effects on everything from blood sugar stability to energy, to belly fat accumulation, and really just to how your body feels to live in. Now, here is why strength training is so critical in this context. When you apply mechanical load to your muscles, when you lift or you push or you pull and you resist weight, you send a direct biological signal to your body to maintain and rebuild muscle tissue. That signal counteracts the catabolic muscle breaking down environment that declining estrogen and elevated cortisol can create. In simple terms, resistance training tells your body to hold onto its muscle. And in midlife, that signal is not a nice to have, it is a physiological necessity. Let me give you a few specific mechanisms because I think understanding the why makes it much easier to actually do the thing that you know you need to do. So firstly, resistance training directly improves insulin sensitivity. When you work your muscles, they become more receptive to glucose uptake. They essentially open up their capacity to receive and use fuel. This means better blood sugar regulation, less reactive hunger, less cortisol compensation, and over time, less central fat storage. This is not a small effect. Studies consistently show that resistance training is one of the most effective interventions for improving insulin sensitivity, often comparable to or exceeding the effects of aerobic exercise. Second, resistance training stimulates the production of a growth hormone and a compound called IGF-1. You've obviously heard about it, it's everywhere at the moment, which is insulin-like growth factor. Both of these play a role in muscle protein synthesis, which is the building and repair of muscle tissue. In a hormonal environment where estrogen is declining and anabolic signals are naturally weaker, these exercise-induced hormonal responses become more important, not less. Third, resistance training is one of the most effective things you can do for bone density. And I want to talk about this because I think it often gets left out of the conversation. Bone density declines significantly through menopause, which increases the risk of osteoporosis and fractures later in your life. The mechanical stress of resistance training stimulates bone remodeling and helps maintain or increase bone density in a way that most other forms of exercise just simply don't. So when we talk about strength training in midlife, we're not really talking about vanity, we are talking about the long-term structural integrity of your body. It's so important. Fourth, and I find this one personally compelling, really, when I'm talking about this, because nervous system regulation is so important in midlife. And there have been studies that have found that resistance training does have a meaningful effect on mood, cognitive function, and nervous system resilience. There's a growing body of research on the relationship between skeletal muscle and brain health. Muscle tissue produces compounds called myokines, and when it contracts and some of these myokines cross the blood-brain barrier, they can have a neuroprotective and mood-regulating effect. So strength training is not just a physical intervention, it is a nervous system intervention also. And for the women navigating the mood fluctuations, the brain fog, and the emotional variability that perimenopause can bring, that matters. Now, I want to address the concern that some women have about getting bulky, because I hear this sometimes and I want to put it to rest. Women, particularly women in midlife with declining estrogen, do not have the hormonal environment required to build large amounts of muscle mass quickly or easily. Estrogen itself is not an anabolic hormone in the way testosterone is, and testosterone levels in women are already much lower than in men. What resistance training does for women in midlife is not build bulk, it builds tone, functional strength, metabolic efficiency, and the kind of physical confidence that comes from feeling genuinely capable in your body. The aesthetic outcome of consistent strength training for most midlife women is a leaner, more defined body composition, not really a larger one. So let's talk about what this actually looks like in practice, because I think one of the reasons women avoid strength training is that it feels complicated or inaccessible, or you need a gym membership and a personal trainer and a really specific program before you can begin. None of that is really true. What matters most is progressive resistance. That means you are working your muscles against a load that is challenging enough to create adaptation. And you are gradually increasing that challenge over time as your strength improves. This can be bodyweight exercises, it can be resistance bands, it can be dumbbells at home. It obviously can be a gym too if you love going to the gym. The specific format is less important than the consistency and the progressive challenge. In terms of frequency, for most midlife women, somewhere between 2 and 4 sessions per week is a really solid foundation. More than that is fine if recovery supports it. But the research suggests that even 2 well-structured sessions per week produces meaningful benefits for muscle preservation and metabolic health. What I would caution against is the instinct that we have probably from our 30s to combine strength training with extremely high intensity cardio in a way that chronically elevates your cortisol. I see this a lot, particularly with women who are already dealing with elevated stress, disrupted sleep, and belly fat. Very high intensity exercise, particularly in the morning before the body has been adequately fueled, can push cortisol higher in a body that is already running on stress signals. And as we discussed in the earlier videos, chronically elevated cortisol is catabolic. It breaks down muscle, so more is not always better. Consistency, adequate fuel, and appropriate intensity are what create results in a midlife body. So where do you start if you're not currently strength training or if you have been doing it inconsistently? My recommendation is to start with the basics and start somewhere. Compound movements that work multiple muscle groups simultaneously, things like squats, lunges, rows, pressing movements, they give you the most metabolic and hormonal benefit per session. Focus on form over load initially and give yourself permission to build slowly. Consistency over months produces results. Heroic effort over 2 weeks followed by burnout really does not. And if you have been strength training but not seeing the results you expect, the most common piece missing for midlife women is protein. We're going to cover that thoroughly in the next video. For now, I want to leave you with this. Strength training in midlife is not optional if you want to age with energy, metabolic health, strong bones, and physical confidence. It is one of the most evidence-based, most powerful things you can do for your body right now. Not because of how it will make you look, but because of how it will allow you to actually live. Fully, energetically, in a body that you trust. If you want to understand the full picture of what's happening in your midlife metabolism, grab the free guide. You will not be sorry. It tells you a little bit about the physiology. It's got a lovely sort of little checklist that you can do yourself to see where you're sitting, and then a 3-day meal plan to get you started towards metabolic stability. It's at rawinspiredliving.com/midlife metabolism guide. and it lays out everything that we've been discussing. So if this video has helped you in any way, and I hope that it has, please share it with a woman that you feel needs to understand and hear this information as well. And I hope that you subscribe and that you don't miss more of the videos that are on this channel. And please leave feedback for me if this is what you like, or you want to know about something else, or you'd like more information. I'd be happy. I read all of the comments, and I'd really be happy to know what other things that you'd enjoy. So I hope you have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you again in Raw Inspired Living.